Woo-hoo! It's Thursday. Anyone ever actually say that? Think about that. I'll tell you what's coming up on today's program. Rebecca Dingwell was diagnosed with autism as an adult. She recently read Unmasking for Life, the Autistic Person's Guide to Connecting, Loving, and Living Authentically, and this is, of course, written by Devon Price. This is his fourth book release, as a matter of fact. And she is here to share her thoughts. And spring is in full swing, and your grocery list is about to get a whole lot greener. Ho, ho, ho. With Mary Mammoliti here, folks, she's going to be giving us a reminder on seasonal eating, and you don't even have to play in the garden to do it.
This is Kelly and Company.
Kelly MacDonald here, and to keep up with the program, would you do me a favor? Check out our podcast from your platform of choice, whichever one you're most comfortable with and using. And while you're in there, give us a rating and review, or zoom over and check us out via YouTube. We have our YouTube page up there with all sorts of great content. Subscribe if you would. Love to have you keeping up with what's going on the show, such as the happenings of Nazreen Abdul-Majid. Welcome back to the show. Haven't had you here a lot this week. A few things going on in your world. Glad to have you on board today.
I know it's been such a crazy week, but it's been nice to get back on Kelly and Company.
I still was thinking a lot about the Eid food, just especially when you get talking about all the meat and stuff like that in the Palestinian foods, and just like, oh, good heavens. My gosh, where are all my darn invites to these things? But yeah, it's been one of those weeks, right? One of the seesaw things we're laughing at in this part of the world, folks, is we're caught between spring and winter. I don't know what you call that, wind spring or spring wind. I don't know, but
Sprinter.
You get temperatures that, yeah, I like the sound
Sprinter.
of that. Today,
yeah,
pretty warm. Next Monday or so, pretty chilly, right? Where you're still wondering when's the snow arrive again.
Yesterday, all I saw was just flurries coming down, and I was like, what? 5 minutes later, it was a snowstorm. I was like, I am not leaving the house. No way. It was crazy. I did not expect it.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and now it's flooded over my TikTok page about people reacting to Ontario's weather. Oh, when you're Ontario, this happens in April. This is so it's all over social media now.
Well, and you go from one to the other in extremes, or you get a day where if you were to set up a camera and then film, a couple of hours, then fast forward, it must be wild just to watch the transition as the temperature kind of flirts. They were talking on, I think it was the CBC the other day, they're going through this thing where they're talking about different places in Canada people can go and really have a good time. And Thunder Bay, Ontario was mentioned. And you don't hear a lot about Thunder Bay, but I've always heard Lakehead, there, the school, the college, really great place to go to, the university, Lakehead University, wonderful place to go to. And part of it is just beautiful. You've got Lake Superior right there. You go a little further and they're on the edge of the prairie, not too far out, where you start to see the transition. And of course, you've got Great Shield, the mountains and things like that. It's one of those places where you can kind of feel like you're getting so much of a variety of territory, land, and I won't say weather, and I won't suggest that the beaches are the greatest. There's a little bit of beaches to go diving into that cold water that stays pretty cold year round. But if you are looking for those places, highly recommended. I know we used to always find on Fridays on the show, we had back-to-back Vancouverites that would come on and talk. Well, we've got one today who can tell us, since we're going on about our up and down weather here, but always the calming factor, Amy Amantea, was BC weather, Vancouver weather, when we'd bring someone on. It either was raining or, of course, nice, but always topped what we were having here at the time. Welcome.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you, my friends. How are you?
All right. How's weather there this week?
We are set to have a stellar week of warm weather. And I think I've heard that in the next maybe couple of days or so, we might get up to like 24.
Good grief.
Something pretty high. I know.
Gosh, I better be careful here. Yeah. You'll get Niz all annoyed. Niz will be gone in a moment looking for a plane ticket out that way. But I shouldn't say it, because
took out my summer dresses for nothing.
This part of Southwest Ontario, not too bad today. I think we're going up to about 17. But your topic today, Amy, a little bit of saluting, because Val Kilmer's daughter announced on April 1st that her father had passed away at the age of 65. He passed from pneumonia. So we have our arts and culture contributor here, and she's got some snapshots of his life and his career. Amy, were you a fan of Val Kilmer?
Yeah, you know, I was a fan. I should say I am a fan, I guess. But I did very much like some of the movies that he was in. Not all of them, not because of him, but just because I wasn't, into that type of movie. And I actually remember one of the movies that he was in, the name escapes me at the moment, when I was a kid making my own movies on a really large camcorder that my dad had with tapes in it.
Boy. Okay.
Please tell me you kept those.
Oh, I have some of the tapes. They're pretty handy, but I don't hilarious. But I'm not sure where they are right now. So my friends and I would film little scenes and whatnot, and I didn't know how to edit anything, so it was really like we'd film something. We had to do oneers, so we'd film something, then we'd put it on pause. Then we'd set up for the next scene and we'd film something. So you'd always have a little bit of static between your scenes.
Jump shots, yes.
Yeah.
Jump cuts, jump cuts.
Yeah. One of the scenes we needed our parents fighting in the background because we were teenagers, right? And
right.
we put on one of Val Kilmer's movies where he was having a fight with his wife and had that background noise. So here we are trying to manage the timing of the TV to hit play so we could get the fight, and then put the camera on the character because you don't want to see the TV, you just want to see the character's reaction to the parents fighting. It was a whole setup of a oneer from a 16-year-old's perspective. So yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It was a
but
great
that's the kind of fun.
Okay, you play while I set this up.
You run. Yeah, you run and do that. Do you still have a machine in which you could play those? That's the real trick today.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
There has to be some shops out there that you can.
You can get them converted though.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can go to a lot of public libraries. You can go and book time and real time record them yourself into digital form. So that's something to think about.
That would be fun. That would be fun to watch.
You don't want to lose that stuff. Niz, do you have stuff like that? I mean, I know you guys are all digital in your world, Niz, but
we do. We do have the VHS machine, and we actually watch those home videos on those. Pretty amazing. Man. We converted a lot of home videos. Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So going back to well, that's what I mean. I must admit, I did not expect. I thought, again, of course, Niz, you've got family who have probably filmed from the film time, the tape. But of course, I'm quick to jump to the conclusion. Oh, you must have everything all on digital right there, and so on limited drives or something. Oh, so really cool that you guys have the family stuff to look back. You must get a great laugh at that. Amy, you want to talk a little Val Kilmer for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he died of pneumonia, of course. We know this, but I don't know if any of you knew or remembered that he was diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014.
I think in 2014, right?
Yeah, same thing that Michael Douglas was diagnosed with and passed away from. Right. But Val Kilmer, which I didn't know, was a Christian Scientist. That was his belief, was Christian Science, not Scientology. So they're talking about him being a Scientologist, but he was more of a Christian Science. And that basically that belief, a part of that belief is that they believe that you can heal the body, that you don't need Western medicine to heal the body. And so didn't seek Western medicine for throat cancer at first, but eventually he did. Eventually he did break his belief system to seek Western medicine for that, which is kind of an interesting thing when you think about it. And I brought a little bit of trivia because I didn't know how well any of you all knew Val Kilmer or were fans of Val Kilmer. So I don't know if you Googled this while I wasn't looking, but let's see. Does anybody know what movie Val Kilmer was best known for?
Okay, I'm gonna throw this out there. I only know him in like one movie, but I know he's in quite a few. But the biggest one I know him is in Top Gun, because I watched it multiple times.
Oh,
That's
I was going to
so
say,
Top
and I was
Gun.
going to, I was going to say
What
Batman.
were you going to say, Kelly?
Boom.
Batman,
is
because he
the
was in one of the
close
Batman.
second.
Okay,
Yeah,
and there's
close second
another
for
one that
Batman.
I remember the advertising for, because he was in Batman with Chris O'Donnell, I believe, when he was in those ones. But
Yes.
I thought there was some other one when I feel like it was. I just remember trailers that it was in some movie where there was storming. It was on some island or something like that. But and
The
that, because I
Island
thought
of Dr.
only.
Moreau.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. Because I remember him only for Batman, right? And I thought, oh wow, what else did he do? So I wasn't really familiar with a lot of his career. Okay.
Yep. The Island of Dr. Moreau is said to be the worst movie. It was his biggest flop.
Oh wow.
Yeah, his biggest flop.
Fail.
And also the movie that he was the most difficult to work with. That he rivaled Marlon Brando with how difficult he was
good
to
grief.
work with on set.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and
They
apparently
actually
he was quite.
exposed that.
Oh yeah. There's
Because that's some
interviews.
reputation.
He was
Yeah.
notorious for being quite difficult to work with on set. Very opinionated. He's a method actor, so anything he did. So, for example, in Top Gun, at first he didn't want to do Top Gun. He was, passed on that, but he was under contract with Paramount, and when you're under contract, you do whatever movie they tell you to do. This is why some actors do really bad movies, and you're like, why did they choose to do that? They might have a contract with a studio that says,
Interesting.
yeah, you have to do 5 movies with us, and they choose the movies that you do. But once he got onto the set and he got the role of Iceman, he brought a real intensity to that and a real cocky energy that made sort of the character dynamic between him and Maverick, which was Tom Cruise, really interesting to watch. And so that character became iconic. So behind the scenes, Kilmer reportedly stayed in character as Iceman, even off camera. So that's what method acting is about. It's like being in character all the time, doing things that the character would do, even when you're not on camera.
Wow.
So he
through the
kept a
shooting schedule.
competitive, he kept the competitive distance from Tom Cruise, and that tension actually happened to make their tension on screen much more intense to watch. So there you go.
Yeah. I think you have to be comfortable with somebody using that format, understand it enough, because it could be for some people, for the crew and the cast, a little off-putting, or you start saying, what's wrong with this guy? Like he's living the part
really
too much.
annoying. I could picture it being
annoying and strange, because you think, like, do you not know when the camera stopped? We stopped. But there are other actors who are very well known for doing it as well and really get into it. And it really I mean, again, I said during the shooting, but Amy, we know that a lot of these actors start that long before. If they're, once they sign on, they start getting into character, months before, living it, eating the food the character would, whatever it might be.
Method acting has been, it's been around since as long as acting has been around. So there isn't a single person in Hollywood that doesn't know what method acting is. Or within their circles of it. And I think this is also why some actors are hard to live with family members, because they go into these deep recesses of places. And like, so if you're playing a role of, I don't know, a drug lord, I'm thinking of, the roles he did in maybe Heat or some of those other movies. And it's like, your wife really doesn't like you right now,
No.
because it doesn't
And the Los
stop,
Angeles
right?
Police
It doesn't
Department
stop.
keeps following you around.
Yeah.
That's the thing. How do you become how are you in personal relationships when you're doing method acting like full time? That must be so difficult.
Or your
pretty
family loves it
frustrating for
because
the
you're not
partner.
around as much, or maybe you go move to some other, like you have that second home of yours that's what you use it for, right? You get it's like writers who
They're rich
say,
enough
look, I
to
need
have
to
a
go
second
into
home,
Yeah, I know some actors who
are.
do roles like, if they were ice fishing, that they would go, spend weeks in an ice fishing cabin. And so there are all sorts of
Frostbite.
things because they they really want to immerse themselves in the environment so that they're coming from a place of authenticity rather than, trying to figure out what it feels like. Okay, here's your next trivia question. What character was widely considered to be his best performance?
I'm not going to say
I'm gonna
Batman
stick with
again.
Top Gun because it was
Iceman?
the Iceman.
Iceman was his
That's
character.
the Top Gun character.
No, but that was his character in
Oh.
Top Gun. Yeah, Iceman. So that's your answer.
yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't
Yeah,
have
I'm
an
gonna
answer.
pick-
I have no idea.
It was Doc Holliday from Tombstone.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not
Doc
know
Holliday.
that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I've never watched it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any guesses, Aim. I'm sorry. I don't know his work enough.
Well, it was Doc Holliday in Tombstone.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That sounds like
I
something I'd
never
like, though.
watched Tombstone, so
It
Yeah.
it was one of my favorite characters of his. So he had one of those mustaches that came out on both sides, the skinny ones, and kind of curled a little bit.
oh my
And
god,
That makes sense.
And a little tiny goatee from the bottom lip to the chin. And
Gotta
he
love
practiced
those.
I know, right? And he practiced this Georgian accent, and he practiced how to twirl guns, ambidextrous. So he could
Oh,
twirl
really?
like
He could do
because they're
both.
gunfighters, right? It's the
either
OK
one.
Corral, Wyatt Earp story, all of that kind of stuff. So you could just think about that. And he added a couple of lines that were quite historic and part of the time period, and he fought really hard to keep them into the movie. So, and at one point,
Nice.
Kurt Russell said it was Val Kilmer that carried that movie. So,
It's interesting too because I love the variety of stuff, and I think as we go through this, we'll see the variety, and I think that's a real sign of an actor who just wants to do different things and certainly avoid being typecast.
absolutely, he had a real repertoire of things that you could pull from. Any idea what his second best character was that he was
Kelly,
known
what
for?
do you think?
I don't know. Again, I don't know enough of the movies.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the thing about an actor who's so diverse. I could watch a movie with Val Kilmer, and I don't know if I could pick him out because of what we're talking about, the method and the variety.
Interesting. It was The Doors. Where he
I was
played
gonna guess that.
where he played Jim Morrison, and because he was so method in that movie, really embodied Jim Morrison. And at one point, the castmates said they couldn't actually tell the difference between him and Jim Morrison. And some of the folks that were in the movie were bandmates of Jim Morrison at the time, and they were like, we can't tell the difference between.
Yeah, I
like,
remember when the
he's
movie
so
was
Jim
made,
Morrison.
I never realized that it was Val Kilmer. And I wasn't a fan where I would be drawn to watch a movie because, Val Kilmer is in this. I would go for the subject matter for sure. I think that'd be interesting. I think somewhat like then it would have been wasted on me. I like the band, but I don't know all that history of Jim Morrison. So really cool.
Yeah. And the last one I have for you is, do either of you know the name of the movie where he played a blind man who had his sight restored?
Oh,
Was it called At First Sight?
It was At First
All
Sight.
right.
Now,
So
bonus question, based on a true story or not?
I think
I'm gonna say
it
fiction.
is. I think it's based on somewhat of a true story that's embellished.
Kelly says it is. Nazreen says it's rubbish. Hui? It's apparently based on a true story, written up by a doctor about a patient that he had. So the essence of this story is that a blind man falls in love with a woman, and she wants to fix his eyesight. Have we heard this story before?
Yeah. Soap operas do it all the time.
And she takes him to a doctor, and he restores the eyesight of this man. And then he goes on this journey of wanting to be blind again because the world is so overwhelming that
Wow.
he's like, I'm not made for this world. So
Wow.
I don't know if we have time to see a clip, but I do have one if you wanted to see it or listen to it.
Can we grab that clip, guys?
Days ago, we sent off Hydra, the three-headed monster, and we get back Mary Poppins in return.
Met a guy. Woo! Wayne Gretzky, look out. Be careful, honey. He's all hands.
So, spill the beans.
Nothing to spill, you know. He's a great guy. He's smart.
Close your eyes. Listen with your whole body.
Funny.
People eat this?
Whoa! Blind.
Oh, I thought you said he was blind. He's blonde.
That too. I just got out of the shower. I have to get changed.
Promise I won't look.
Virgil? Ethan.
Ethan?
Are you blind?
Yeah.
Cool. See ya.
Kids think I'm cool.
You are.
I didn't like the feeling of waking up and thinking you weren't there.
If something could be done to give you sight, would you take it?
Forgot that it's helped the handicap week.
He spent the first 8 years of his life having his eyes probed, pierced, poked at. He doesn't need to go through that again.
I'm sorry.
Virgil, you'll see a lot, but none of that matters if you lose sight of what you want.
I love that. Are you blind?
Wow.
Yeah. Cool. See ya.
Yeah, cool kid.
Yeah, I got my answer. That's all right. No problem there. Got it. Let's go play.
That's so interesting. I want to watch the full movie.
Yep. So there you go.
What about the doors? Wouldn't you watch that too, Niz?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, Niz was. Yeah, I mean that method acting. Niz would even watch the Western.
Now every time I watch a movie of his, I'm imagining him like going off camera and staying in character.
Yeah, the end, and he's still in character. No, I'm picking up the paycheck. Oh, yeah, I better stay until they pay me. Amy, fantastic.
Yeah.
Cut. What are you still?
He's got a documentary out too. That's on Prime Video, so you should check that out. It's from 2021, and both his daughter, she produced it, and his son narrates it, because they're both working in Hollywood as well. So talks all about his illness and his life. So yeah.
Wow. Amy, thanks for taking us down memory lane, of course, with Val Kilmer, because what a talent who really did respond well to the big screen. That is awesome. And folks, check out that biopic called Val. And that's, of course, on Prime Video. Amy, we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
I'll be here.
So I want to talk a little bit about being on camera. I want to talk about being a method actor. And while I'm at it, let's talk about being in a cafe, having coffee, answering questions. Oh, Nazreen.
Yes.
Oh, that was you yesterday. Method acting, playing Nazreen.
Mm-hmm. This is why I missed yesterday's show, because I was at a cafe talking about myself for God knows how long. And I got to tell you, Kelly, it feels weird talking about yourself for that long.
Long chat?
I feel
was
like
it long?
It was long, but it was kind of fun, and I felt guilty feeling like it was fun because all I was doing was talking about myself.
I'll ask Bruce and Andrew how long. I'll say, how long? How was that chat with Niz? Oh man, she went on for 3 hours about herself.
I know,
that's what they'll tell me.
Stop talking about herself. Like, we're over it. Her life isn't that interesting.
Was it the talking about yourself or doing it in a public venue that kind of was awkward?
It was a combination of both. At first, this is the first time I ever have done a shoot like this, where I would just kind of talk about my personality, talk about myself, what I'm doing. It was like a getting to know you type of shoot, and it was really interesting just to kind of. I went in blind, didn't know what they were gonna ask me, and Bruce goes, "Oh, I forgot to send you the questions." This was like 5 seconds before they were going to record. And I was like, "Are you serious?" So he's like, "I can send them now." And I'm like, "It's too late."
I'm sure he forgot. What a pity.
Yeah, I'm sure he forgot. We just went with it, and it was kind of fun. You know, they were asking me a bunch of questions about myself, and then you realize, is my life boring? Because when they start, okay, I'm not going to give too much away. It was just one question that I wanted to give away was, what was the most interesting, wildest thing that you've ever done? And I had to think about it. I was like, what wild things have I done in my life? So it was fun overall, just to kind of get to know about myself because I thought about stuff that I haven't thought about in such a long time. But to do it at a public space was also a wild experience because people are just passing through, staring, what's happening
What's
here?
going on here? And then they start thinking you're a celebrity filming something like,
I know, I
who
felt
is
pretty
that?
nice. I was like,
Yeah.
you guys don't know me yet, but you want my autograph?
But you will.
Yeah.
I came into this, I'm a blind lady who's come into this blind. I like how you
Yeah.
said that. We caught it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Oh, that's really great. And it's fun because you get spoiled on the shoot. The guys took care of you, I'm sure, tried to make you feel as comfortable as possible. And it is hard, but
they were
it's
great,
awkward.
yeah.
But you get to really have some fun and get spoiled. Did you eat any food while you were shooting, or did you know better than to do that?
I had like 2 cups of coffee. That's all I needed.
Okay, that's good. That's good because
that's all, you know me with coffee.
You also don't want to get crumbs or something. If you're in a cafe and you get
exactly,
the donut,
it's just going to be all over my shirt.
Yeah, or on a lip or something like that, and you're not going to realize, and then until somebody's doing post work and says, well, "Why is there crumbs there?
Oh, wow.
What? How come nobody caught that?"
Yeah, I want to avoid these embarrassing moments. I've had enough of it in my life. That's fine.
Well, congratulations. I think that's awesome. I'm glad it went well. I knew you'd have lots of fun with the guys. Folks, we're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with every decision that we make here at AMI, including programming, media consumption, and of course, accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies that they participate in. For more information or maybe how to join, go to ami.ca/panel. Of course, we'd absolutely love to hear from you. You can follow this program on Instagram and Twitter. Nisreen takes care of that. We'll get into some good conversation shortly about that, as a matter of fact, at Kelly & Co. AMI. Please do check us out via Instagram and Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI.
Rebecca Dingwell was diagnosed with autism 3 years ago. She recently read Unmasking for Life, the Autistic Person's Guide to Connecting, Loving, and Living Authentically by Devon Price. Rebecca is here to share her thoughts. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi.
Always fun chatting with you. So let's get started. What does it mean for autistic people to unmask?
So I guess the best way to explain it is to talk about what masking is. So when we're talking about masking in terms of autistic people, this got really confusing around the pandemic, I'll say. But when I say masking, what I mean is autistic people masking their autistic traits. So that could be any number of things like stimming or facial expressions or tone. In fact, I just masked when I came into this because you noticed my face was very flat when the camera was onto me. And then when Nisreen said hi, I instantly put on a smile. Not that I'm not happy to see Nisreen, but that's just not my instinct to do that. But because of my experience, I know that that's a social thing. So when we're talking about unmasking, it's sort of, if I were to put it in a nutshell and kind of how Devon Price describes it here, it's sort of looking at life and how you express yourself in a way that works for you more so than trying to navigate how you should perform for other people. And that's sort of the crux of it, I think.
So I want to ask, why is it important for the books to have been written for and by autistic people rather than about them by a neurotypical expert?
Yeah, so I think it just so happens that we have a lot of books by psychologists, neuroscientists, researchers about autism. And I'm not saying that, those are inherently bad. I mean, I think about Neuro Tribes by the late Steve Silberman, and that was a groundbreaking book when it came out, and he was allistic, he was not autistic. But I think we're just at a point where that's just not so much necessary anymore. I think that, and I think that goes back to the unmasking conversation where an allistic person or researcher might look at a book about autism and talk more about, okay, how can this autistic person fit in or make the lives for people around them easier? And I feel like an autistic person is more likely to be concerned about the autistic people themselves and saying, okay, how can we make life easier for autistic people rather than the neuroconforming or oralistic people around them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm interested on that, Rebecca, the value of, we easily would say, well, what's somebody doing writing about something they don't know from lived experience? But we know we get that all the time. You can write about skydiving and never have done it if you've researched well. But when we get into people and personal a little more, it's like what are you doing? How dare you do that? And I guess there is value for people associating helping people cope with. I think about people when they do it with blindness, and the things that they've learned. Maybe it's a mobility instructor, maybe it's an educator of the blind and things like that. Somebody who may have some basis as opposed to just researching. But is this do you think it's viewed at all in an offensive way, or is it a help to the community? Because sometimes you get tired of answering questions, explaining yourself, and maybe the quote expert or someone else who can give a different take is in a supportive way supporting community.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the short answer is that it depends. I think that there are lots of people who have dedicated their lives to research about autism through the lens of neuroscience. And I think that that's super useful. I don't think you need to be autistic to understand. I think that the person in question just has to recognize the standpoint or the point of view from which they're looking. And also, the phrase "nothing about us without us" gets thrown around a lot. And I think that, well, there's probably more nuance to it than that. That being said, I think if they are interviewing actual autistic people, have experience where they're with studies where there are actual autistic participants, then I think that there is a little bit of wiggle room with some of that stuff. And I think it can be helpful to have the more scientific elements in conjunction with the social elements, if you will. But I think it depends on kind of what the individual reader was looking for. I recently started reading a book that was sort of more through that lens, and I ended up not finishing it, not because there's anything inherently wrong with the book. It was just that I was like, I don't feel this is something for me that I have use for at this
not
point.
Applicable.
So, yeah, it depends.
Yeah. I think masking or unmasking is a highly personal process, but the author says it's not just a personal process of self-acceptance. But what do you think? What makes it a broader experience?
Yeah, so I think that and one thing Price says is he doesn't want to frame masking as an inherently negative thing. It's a tool, and there are all sorts of reasons that people do it. He sort of narrows it down to like 5 core skills that people can tap into in order to unmask. And throughout the book, he goes through those 5 skills in different contexts. So the skills are 1, acceptance, 2, engagement, 3, transgression, 4, tolerance, and 5, creation. So, for example, when we look at number 4, tolerance, one of the aspects of that is tolerance of being disliked. And so that's in the sense of trying to make friends, form communities, make connections. If you are constantly trying to please everybody around you, you're never going to figure out who you are. So if you can, and again, this is a process, but if you can figure out how to be at peace with being disliked, and I think I've talked about this before when I've talked about boundaries, but that will like set you free. It doesn't mean you have to love it, but if you're able to tolerate that, then you'll be in a much better place than if you're just constantly trying to make everyone around you happy, because you will end up being miserable and you won't form the genuine connections that I think many people are seeking.
Yeah. I want to touch on like how can friends family and colleagues support an autistic person's decision to unmask?
Yeah, so
What do you
I
think?
think that it's, yeah, this is this can be a tricky one. I think if I had to boil it down to one thing, like don't be surprised or judge them if you notice after a diagnosis or, even if some time has passed after a diagnosis, someone is acting quote unquote more autistic. I think sometimes that person might get a rap that they're putting it on or playing it up, when in fact, a lot of the time it's just that they're not suppressing it anymore. So I vocally stim a lot more now, especially when I'm at home. And like sometimes my husband thinks I'm talking to him and is like, "What are you saying right now?" And I'm like, I'm just vibing. Like, don't worry about me. But I wouldn't, now I know I don't do that like around my mom really, unless it comes out, because I know that there are some places where that might be questioned or might be not tolerated as much. So there are still situations and places where I do mask, but I think just, being accepting, or even just, I mean, a lot of it is pretty hands off, I feel like, to be accepting. You don't have to do anything really. You just don't have to. You can ask questions, but you don't have to draw attention to it all the time. It just kind of, if they have stimming tools, if they have other support devices that you haven't seen before, if they have to wear earplugs at big family gatherings, don't make it a big thing. And if you want, you can always ask, because I feel like it's very specific and very personal. So if you want to know how you could support somebody, just be like, "Hey, is there a way that I can make family gatherings a better experience for you?" Or is there a way I can make like this party a better experience for you? Whatever the case may be.
Just keeping it simple, honestly. At the end of the day, keep it simple. Ask them questions, how they can feel comfortable, how you can support them. It's that's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah,
I had so many questions for you, Rebecca, and unfortunately we ran out of time, so we have to make a part 2 for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Happy Autism Acceptance Month.
And Rebecca, thanks for being so open, and great to share.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was Rebecca Dingwell. She joined us with her perspectives on Unmasking for Life, the Autistic Person's Guide to Connecting, Loving, and Living Authentically by Devon Price.
Excellent. Nisreen, we get into many different conversations on the show, and I find, and I've always said in the history of this show, how much I learn from people's perspectives, people's information they bring to the table, and their openness and honesty and vulnerability. We get talking about that even out on social media, and there's some things that of recent, some attention drawn to stuff you've posted out there, and we want to say fedoras off to people. We really appreciate the interaction. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, we posted a clip from Anmock's segment on Instagram, and guys, I love the comments, the messages that we got, the likes, the views. It really made us happy just getting that positive feedback, because when we get positive feedback, we know that we're doing our job right, that's for sure, and we have the right guests on the show. So yeah, we got some amazing feedback, and one of those feedback is from Wear a Bond. That's the Instagram handle, and they say that we love listening to Anne. She's amazing, such an inspiration, and we got so many comments along those lines, and I love that. We appreciate all your feedback and just giving us those comments and likes and shares and feedback in general really kind of motivates us to continue doing what we do and get those. It just helps us get to where we need to be in our shows.
I love the journeys that people have when they bring things to the show. They arrive here and tell us things and share so much, like Rebecca did, like Anne did on the program. Matt Agnew and I our senior producer, we were talking about this, him and I, in a meeting this morning. And what I find amazing is often the beginning of the journey, when people arrive at certain key points, as Anne was sharing with us as she dealt with things, starting with the difficulties of the pandemic, her own health condition, and stuff like that. But being able to try to contextualize it for us. Not everybody can explain how they're feeling, how they were feeling, be comfortable to do so. And that's okay. Sometimes we'd like to, sometimes we can't. But her openness with us was really tremendous, and it really led to a tremendous conversation.
Absolutely loved it.
Can go back to me too.
Yeah.
And I really find, as we say, in this world where so many people are sharing with us, and we are that much richer, being able to listen to people, to stop for a moment and take in what they have to say, instead of maybe standing there asking questions where you start second guessing what you're asking or how you're wording it or being self-conscious. And you've got people willing to speak and share with us and explain. And I really appreciate it, because we all get that way. People will say to me, well, you have a disability. You're very obviously comfortable with people with disabilities. I remember when I wasn't. I remember when I was afraid to ask someone in a wheelchair like Brock Richardson questions that I thought, well, that's probably personal. That's probably none of my business. Yeah. And I yet felt, Nazreen, I was a very open person. People could ask me, pretty well anything. So really thank our guests for coming and sharing and being so open and eager to do so, but more so what they do outside of dropping in just to see us for a few minutes, and what they're doing every day to help people understand circumstances, situations, and each person's uniqueness. You can email us if you have questions, kellyco@ami.ca. You can call us and leave us a message and respond to us too, 1-866-509-4545.
Spring has officially sprung, and that means fresh local produce is popping up everywhere. Joining us to dish out the best seasonal picks is culinary expert Mary Mammoliti. Hi.
Hi.
How's it going?
It's going.
Springtime yet or not yet?
Did you hear that? Hi. I was like, okay, Mayor, what happened or what's going on? Isn't the temperature warm enough, or did the rain do something nasty?
I guess not.
No, I was just listening to the end of your last segment, and I'm thinking to myself, you're talking about everyone sharing their stories, sharing their experiences, and I'm coming on talking about produce. Produce is fun.
It's part of our lives, though.
It is, and everybody's looking forward to this stuff because of everything going on with tariffs, everything going on with buying local. You've been talking about that, so people are excited. But Mary, tell us a little bit about your story. Mary's gonna sit back and say, guys, quit it.
How long do we have?
No, let's get started. So what spring produce should we be reaching for right now, and how can we use it without overcomplicating things?
Okay, so the first one, asparagus. This honestly is the crown jewel of spring. That's what I like to call it, because honestly, it's one of the first signs of spring, right? It's loaded with nutrients. It can be grilled, it's roasted, chopped. You can enjoy it in so many different ways. Put it into a salad. It's so good. But when you're selecting them, here are a couple of tips. So I want you to look for asparagus stalks that are firm to the touch. They're able to stand up. They have a smooth texture. Bright green spears, and the tips. I want you to check the tips, feel them, take a look, and just feel the top of it. If it's nice and tight, they're nice and fresh. If they're opened up, they're a little more mature. It doesn't mean that they're bad, as long as they're not slimy. It just means that you should consume them. You should eat them right away. So that's what I would say when you're selecting asparagus. And honestly, skip those limp ones. You don't want them. No one wants those.
Mayor, we were talking on AMI today about this. I feel asparagus would be the one vegetable that goes well with many more things, whether it be beef, pork, in the salad.
I think about barbecued steak or barbecued ribs.
Well, barbecued, but asparagus too off the barbecue. Ooh, good heavens! Yeah. But it goes with so much. If you start listing off what do potatoes go with, what do carrots, what do beans, whatever, asparagus just seems to show up and could go anywhere on a plate with any food.
Honestly, grab a vegetable peeler, shave it. Just peel it off, add a little bit of oil, vinegar. You got yourself a salad. You know, there's just so much you can do with it. And I agree with you, Kelly. It's just so versatile. It goes with every single dish. Exactly. It's perfect. It's a great spring veg.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Next on your list.
Next, peas, snap peas. These are sweet. They're crunchy. And honestly, totally underrated. Fresh peas, they're bright, they're sweet, they're perfect for everything. You can toss them into risottos, you can toss them into cold pasta salads, eat them alone. They're so good. Snap peas, this is one of my favorites. It's a little bit of an addiction of mine. Snap peas, because I eat them raw and I'll dip them into some hummus, or I'm a dipper. I'll find something to dip it into, or I'll just eat it on its own, but on it. Yeah, right. You dip it. It's just got this sweetness to it. It's got this crunch to it. Try sauteing them in a pan. So good. It just gets this little char to them. They're just so good. Here's a little tip when you're storing them. I want you to store them unwashed, paper towel lined container, right? Because that keeps them nice and crisp. That's all there is to it. Put the lid on, pop them into the fridge, you're good to go.
Because they can get a bit soggy, right, if you don't store or don't put them right. But what a great food. I find what's interesting too with this, and one that you have coming up too, we'll get to in a bit, is that natural taste that grows. It's amazing how some things have that. Yeah, and whether it be a sweeter taste, a spicy taste, it's really fascinating, because you think of most vegetables as having their own unique taste, like carrots or something like that, but it's got its taste, and carrots are sweeter tasting generally, right? So I get that, but there's some that can pop off the chart. Like
absolutely. These. Absolutely. Snap peas. Definitely. Yeah. Give it a try. And just don't leave them in those bags, the plastic bags that you buy them in.
I guess your next one kind of jumps off the page too, as a matter of fact. It makes Nisreen do weird faces, doesn't it, Nisreen?
A little bit.
Even in a pie. Yeah. Even in a pie it would.
Pie.
Really? Rhubarb. Is anyone, you guys, are you fans of rhubarb or no?
Yep.
Not really.
Yeah, I like it. You know what? It's another one, Mary, you know, when you talk about stuff that goes back to childhood, it's the one where I remember visiting, coming home, and my mother would have the sink full of rhubarb. And she would, Kelly, what are you doing? And I'd pick it up because, of course, all I thought of was, oh, wow, rhubarb pie. Yeah, but Kelly, I got to make it into a pie look at the funny look on your face, because I would try, I'd bite it and like that kind of thing. And what are you doing? Yeah. But it was just the rawness of the rhubarb being ready to be made into a pie or used in other ways, which you're going to share with us.
Right, and that's the thing. I mean, like you mentioned, a pie, a strawberry rhubarb pie. That's a classic spring duo right there. And it's so delicious in a pie. Because the taste, okay, so let's go back to rhubarbs, the taste. Like you mentioned, it's bold, it's tart, it's sharp. Rhubarb has like this, it adds this great punch to like jams, compotes, even some savory dishes. If you're into dishes like pork or duck, add a little rhubarb. Pairs perfectly with it.
Good heavens. I didn't think about that. I mean, it's such an obvious thing when you talk about the things that people, you know, applesauce or whatever with pork and something to give that taste, a mix of the tart and sweet. But rhubarb, wow.
Right?
And
do a little
preparing
rhubarb
that and doing
compote
that'd be good. Ooh.
And compote, honestly, it sounds very fancy. Just cook it down. Cook down the rhubarb a little bit. You got it. It's really easy to do. Pop that on top. It pairs perfectly with pork. Now, how I want you to select your rhubarb when you're choosing it at the grocery store. So you want these firm stalks, vibrant. Just make sure that they're nice and firm. Nothing's wilted. Don't worry about the leaves too much, because you're going to skip those leaves. You're not going to consume them because they are toxic. So just discard them.
Mm-hmm.
Mayor, what's our season? When is it where we're going to go buy it?
It's coming up. Rhubarb.
That's what I thought. Okay, I thought it was May. Like I thought it was in May or something, right?
Coming up. Okay. Definitely coming up.
Okay.
What about radishes? How do we feel about radishes?
Not bad.
Okay, good. I thought for sure I was going to hear in this ring. This is the one that I was saying kind of has that spicy kick to it. That's a natural that you'd almost say, what the heck is that if you were eating it and not knowing any better? I like it in little sliced into like slivers, almost like not that thin and small, but I love that in a salad.
It's so good. It's got that peppery, like you mentioned, it's got a peppery taste to it. It can also be a really great palate refresher. Like if you take a little bite after something, it cleanses the palate a little bit because it spices it up. Like you mentioned, toss it into salads. Toss it with a little bit of butter. Saute them. They're so good. My favorite right now, and I'm a little bit obsessed with it, is roasting them because it gives us it gives it that milder bite, which is really delicious. And
So I find out when you do that, it does make the taste very different. It's kind of like you would almost think you could throw it in with Brussels sprouts, and they have a very interesting.
Oh my God, that's perfect
combo. Yeah, they have a very interesting combo.
That's a perfect idea. It's
Why,
a perfect pairing.
Why is it just the way it breaks down as you roast it, or
as you roast them, you roast them, it breaks down that pepperiness. And if you're adventurous, what I suggest, and you love some time in the kitchen and you want to try something different, keep those greens. Don't toss out those greens because they're edible. So you can turn them into a pesto if you want to hang out in the kitchen a little bit. That's my advice.
Would you do it, Kelly? Hang out in the kitchen a little bit more?
Oh yeah, man! You put a book on or an old time radio show. Why not, right? It's more the problem is would I get that into? Now what we're listing off here, I love all these vegetables for the most part. Like I enjoy them in one way or another. Yeah, okay, like you, Niz, I prefer the rhubarb to be disguised in a pie. But with Mary's sake, making the suggestion with duck, pork, I would really be interested in trying that out. I really would. So, all right, but spending that extra time in the kitchen.
Yeah, spending extra time in the kitchen. And like you mentioned, I love a good audiobook while I'm cooking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love it.
On a Sunday.
And one that I've just been constantly, I haven't been able to put down. That's been going on constantly while I've been doing anything. Spring herbs. Spring herbs. These are the fresh way to wake up your cooking. Right now, perfect time because during April, you're likely to find herbs like chives, parsley, rosemary, thyme, mint. Those are all in season. And with some other herbs, maybe like basil, cilantro, dill, those start coming towards the warmer part of the month. So it's usually towards the middle to end part of April. Well, right now, anything goes because yesterday we had that storm, that snowstorm and freezing rain. So we don't know what's happening, but expect these to be coming.
Okay, Mary, can we talk though about these on storing them? Because this is the stuff you want to mix in with everything that you're getting in the different months as stuff that becomes available all through the summer, maybe into the winter.
Well, this is the thing. This is one of my favorite ways to store herbs are to blitz them up, mix them up with a little bit of olive oil, put them into ice cube trays, and then freeze them. And then I call them my little kind of flavor bombs. And then I can add them right to whatever I'm cooking, and then they don't go to waste. I know a lot of people like to keep them on their counter in a cup with a little bit of water at the bottom. That's all great, but my favorite way, honestly, is to freeze them because you lock in that freshness. You add a little bit of olive oil. It's just to keep it in the form of a cube, and then you can add it to any dish. This way, you're never ever really getting. You're throwing them out.
So you're mixing them, putting them in each of the ice cube tray slots, and a tiny bit of olive oil into and let it. And then when you're using it, you just pull it out, crack it out. You throw one of them in with the food you're cooking, and let it just do its thing.
Yeah, if you have a food processor and one of those little ninja bullet kind of things, blenders, blend it up, just blitz it up, give it a fine chop to it, and then add the olive oil. They freeze beautifully and they work well. Yeah.
Wow.
They freeze well. Yeah. And like I said, they brighten up every dish. Herby sauces, spring soups, cocktails. Cocktails are great, a little mojito. But a little bit of that goes a long way.
A little mint and dill in there, just throw it in and go to town. Jeez, I like that.
Yeah. So spring's the time to get all excited about produce.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for talking produce with me.
All right.
If that didn't inspire a spring grocery run, I don't know what will. See you next time for more Kitchen Chat. Thanks, Mary.
I like that. Produce. I love how we go around with it, don't we?
Yeah.
Folks, on our next program, when we join you tomorrow, Brock Richardson will arrive with us. So thanks to audiobooks and podcasts, we have access to literary works like never before. A new podcast hosted by actor Hugh Bonneville is bringing the tales of Sherlock Holmes to life. Greg David, he joins us to talk about his latest entertainment addiction. All that tomorrow. Hey, we might do NBA talk too. Randall Erlman's going to drop by on the next edition of Kelly & Company.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly & Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.